Alright, so I played a game recently called Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma, I guess. Anyway, so I don't expect to create a normal kind of video for this, but I did feel like making something of an opinion piece for this. Because, well, if you don't know, I am very much a fan of Zero Escape, but for some reason, Zero Time Dilemma just... I remember seeing some negativity about that game, and I remember seeing that the system requirements for that were just a tiny bit above what I've had. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna wait for just a better time to play it, just later. I didn't want to play it right after Virtue's Dilemma, but years went by and I didn't try it that whole time. Until recently. So, I believe that... Well, I'll make my opinion clear, but one thing I can say for certain is what I would recommend that game, and I do believe that while it might not be as good as Virtue's Last Dilemma or the 999 game, it still is good, and I don't believe there's any way the game could have wrapped up any better than this. Considering how much hype was built up in Virtue's Last Reward, it would be impossible to write anything even remotely close to the amount of hype it tried to create. The sheer amount of mysteries, the sheer amount of answers it was supposed to deliver, it would be impossible. So, now I'm just gonna do my thoughts as I was playing the game. Mostly it would be just be complaining, but later on I would talk on the plot points, so yeah, this is spoilers, pure spoilers talk, nothing but spoilers. So, thus far I can say only one thing: lower quality. Writing, animation, UI, puzzles, pacing, even performance. Everything is worse than Virtue and Nonary. However, after making a magnum opus, it doesn't mean that the next thing can easily compare. So in my opinion, it's good, period. Also, I guess I missed Fi, or as I called her Fee, a snarky, short and ever-likable bitch. So opening scene is extremely stilted and weird. The coin flip guessing is entirely pointless. I don't understand why it even happens. And from what I understand of this man, Katara Uchikoshi, he doesn't do pointless things. The beginning choice must mean something, and I'm waiting for a payoff. By the way, yeah, now that I played the whole thing, there was no payoff. Whole thing... Well, one thing I realized is that the whole thing is written with one phrase in mind. The one phrase which Zero keeps repeating over and over again. Isn't the life unfair? And I don't believe that's actually a very good idea for a story. Anyway, moving on next. After that coin game, it was a few words about the game, the characters, the voting, and this dragged on as well as shown the characters in an unknown light. I don't understand why Sigma and Phi even give a crap. I feel like they just aren't written that well. They should have been a lot more detached than they end up being. They're still my favorite, but yeah. Also, Eric is a whiny little bitch and I hate him. Definitely some amount of relating happening, because I definitely relate to him the most out of the cast. But I feel like even I am more likable than that guy. At least I can keep quiet and not just simp over a woman I don't know anything about. So, the what and death scenes make zero sense whatsoever. I only unlocked 2 out of 4 despite going through every scene to unlock those. So I'm guessing there's either some randomness programmed or I messed something up. Okay, later on, the explanation if you are also stuck at the execution scenes. The game actually has some persistence between your choices. So if you voted for one team with one team, if you play as a C team and you vote. If you vote for a Q team, that choice persists if you're playing a Q team, and that choice will persist if you're playing a D team. So you basically gotta go through everything in a very specific order, despite the game actually not telling you that. It's inconvenient, and yes, some choices persist between different cutscenes, despite not really appearing to do so. So after that, voting scenes, next was the puzzle room, and here came the puzzle criticism. It was easy. I don't remember being stuck too often in the original 2 games, but in this one I breezed through puzzles. It feels a little too easy. Just a little, as I'm still bad at puzzles. But what was important was the result. I did the healing room, and it opened a button, which gave me 40 seconds of not pressing it or pressing. I waited, listening to my favorite girl. But I noticed something odd which kept repeating over the course of a game: decisions and perspective of storytelling. So every single thing happening seems to always be about our two characters telling the leader what to do, but not actually doing it themselves. Sometimes they can do certain things, but generally every important decision is given to the leader. This isn't realistic behavior, and there is supposed to be arguing and just, I'm going to do this myself kind of behavior. Instead, they very patiently and obediently wait for the input from the leader. It feels like they're winking to the camera, aware that the results don't matter, and it's just still about teaching the leader or the player what the result would be. So, this particular plot point, I saw it, and I thought it would be important. But it seems like it was either written that way and then the writer decided to drop it, or it just never was in their mind. It might be just bad writing in that regard. In my opinion, the team's division and having a leader be decided to be one of them, that felt pointless. It had no reason to be there. It could have been Sigma doing decisions instead of Diana. It could have been Eric pressing buttons instead of Q. I don't understand why it had to be Q, except for making the story more convenient to tell. So anyway, after that, it ends and then everyone is dead and and the killer is wearing high heels. Currently I don't know who, but right away I thought it was Mira. By the way, spoilers, it was Mira. I was right. This is the only time the murder happened thus far, and I seem to be going through about 50% of the game, blah blah blah. What I do want to complain openly about is the button. So that 40-second wait, press the button and it actually explodes the facility and kills everyone. This is the dumbest thing I have seen in a murder mystery game. I understand if it was some sort of, oh, we didn't disarm the bombs of virtue, or a strange decision by the village heads in Raging Loop, but instead it's a full, hey, this is a button, don't press it, oops, you did, game over. No explanation, no reasoning, just a fucking joke on the player. I am insulted and confused. And again, this brings me to my original point. Life isn't fair. For some reason the writer wants to tell the player, this game is just unfair. Sometimes it tells you, well, there's just a bad choice. I guess it is a lesson, but it's not a good lesson to give in a game. Okay, so after that, next I have done some puzzles with our teams, but nothing they did was very important to note. A lot of the background information on the characters and the hints toward the bigger story in the background. I either need to list all of the plot points and note absolutely everything important, or just brush over it. So I'm brushing over it, because I didn't feel like writing every single thing. It would take me about as long as the game is. I guess the only thing I'd like to say is that Mira is weirdly appealing. Of course it's just my self-preservation going backwards again. For some reason I'm being attracted to women who are likely to kill me, but also she's specifically written in a very reasonable way. Serial killers generally seem to be written in such a way that they revel in their action. But she's a lot more animalistic and robotic, at the same time, somehow. So her animal side kills and tries to understand, but doesn't see killing as something wrong. She just does it because she wants. But she won't kill if she doesn't really want to. So, like an animal, she's just not hungry anymore. And the robotic side of her judges the rest of her actions. So she's very reasonable a lot of the times. She is resorting to her robotic side instead of a beastly one. And by the way, yeah, I'm spoiling it here, Mira is a serial killer, because I actually discovered that really early, and I spoiled it for myself like 5 minutes before discovering it in the game itself. It's weird how easily that kind of plot point, this huge plot point, is getting revealed. So yeah, that's strange. After that, the scene with the crossbow shows her reasonable side pretty well. She's perfectly fine killing Eric, so animalistic side, but if Q attacks her, she retaliates. But she doesn't instantly lash out. It was very logical kind of, okay, you messed up, screw you. And she doesn't actually kill Q if she doesn't get attacked. So, again, robotic side. Another scene to note is the shower. Again, dragging on as everything repeated with every team. Aside from that, I feel like the scene loses its gravity when the characters don't explain their actions. I can tell what it's a hint towards some later plot points. But currently it looks as if they fake it. Not a very emotional response, not very, haha, I got them kind of response either. It's just very player-like. And it feels odd. But what is even more odd is that every time it ends in a shower or with a leader running back. Oh yeah, so every time I make a choice to press the button or not press the button, it ends either with the team passing out and that's just the end, or the leader runs back into the shelter when opening the X door. Carlos just randomly runs back and says, "I had to protect you because I promised another timeline." Q can't abandon the dog. Good boy, totally understandable. And Diana seemingly goes crazy only to talk to Zero directly. This cements what Zero isn't just a recording, who chastises her and says, "Nice acting." Yeah, that was weird. I don't understand what the hell was going on with the shower scene. More things I have seen and got me confused by. Phi, red hair, and Luna. So it's very, very strongly implied that Sigma and Diana end up together in some facility in the future. But Diana dies. He then makes a robot Luna who is very much like her but not quite. In virtue, Luna appears to be very much like Diana. However, I don't remember seeing any clues toward her being a robot. It seems like the kind of major thing I would remember, despite my memory being a not great reliable thing, which is why I write everything down. Second thing I've noticed is that Phi had orange eyeliner and orange eyebrows. At first I assumed it's her being stylish. She does dress pretty fancy in this game, but it seems to be more than that. She then spells it out. She has red hair. In virtue, there's zero clues toward that. She has white hair. She is a cute little young snarky granny. Theory from me, so far it seems like a retcon, but it seems to be a bit of a bootstrap paradox, meaning she is Sigma's and Diane's daughter. Diane dies during childbirth. Then the timeline is wonky, as both are supposed to be 20 years old before the time dilemma. Roughly the same year, but time dilemma. At the moment I feel like a genius, as this seems to be a very likely scenario. I actually comment on that, and yes, I am a genius, I'm completely right here. So, one weird thing I've noticed, by the way, despite both Phi and Sigma being very experienced and with jumping between timelines, neither is open to the idea of everyone dying. It's written as if both of them care very much, but they don't really care that much if they themselves die, as long as everyone remains alive. And they are gonna do their damnedest to save the other, and I just don't remember them ever being this emotional. I'm confused as to why they just don't consider jumping. Their actions don't really align with their characters, so it's confusing. So, transporters seem to be a gigantic spoiler. And they get used, and they work exactly as I expected them to. It's the way to create another copy of self in another timeline, meaning I believe that all 3 games are going to be explained with this device. And I can see how it's very discouraging to the players. So this explains why the reviews might be a little bit negative, because this kind of device gets pulled out of the ass and then suddenly is a big plot point. Terrible way to write something. It's like 2 games will build up all these pseudo-scientific theories, and then the third one comes along and goes, aliens. And I did the little finger thing, you know. What a crock of bull. And also, by the way, about the transporters. I was very proud of myself for actually solving the number mystery. That was the one thing. It's like, usually when I do the puzzles with these games, I get stuck, I go to a walkthrough. However, here, I essentially had the whole thing figured out. I took a notepad, and I spent a long time writing down everything. It's like this. Okay, so this image is this image is this. Okay, this card beats that card, so it's bigger than that card. I spent a long time writing it all down, only to realize that the whole thing is actually a lot simpler than I originally assumed, because it only goes up to 12? It goes up to 12. So every card is going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah blah blah, up to 12. That made the whole thing so much easier. Especially because it's actually multiplied, and not this image plus that image. That made the math so much easier, because it made clear that human can only go up to 3. The moon can only go up to 2. So the puzzle became a lot easier once I figured that one out. Gotta say, still a cool puzzle. Those kinds of puzzles where you have, okay, so this thing corresponds to a number, and this corresponding thing is bigger than that other corresponding thing. That kind of puzzle can be so difficult. It sounds simple on paper, but goddamn, I was very proud of myself for figuring that out. But I didn't figure out the whole thing because I didn't realize that there was actually information I needed after that. And the game obviously didn't tell me that. It didn't, like, oh hey Sigma, something appeared on the monitor, or something like that. No, nothing. So I needed to look at the walkthrough, and it's like, something appears behind you. It's like, oh, I did not see that. I was ready to give up. But yeah, I don't think I could have done it with the walkthrough. Great puzzle. I really enjoyed that puzzle. So after that, I played some more puzzles and found out that Eric is, how do I put it exactly? Disdain is one word, pity is another, disgust is a third. The sheer volume of stupidity to accuse a little kid every second is just boyo. And then he also has a PTSD episode. I guess it's fitting that he's been totally submissive to a serial killer. That's the only one who can tolerate his ass. Also, the puzzle in the shower room was annoying and awkward. The one with lockers. The drain didn't show numbers. It simply did not work. I found the walkthrough and it clearly said what was supposed to happen. So I did it. Nothing appeared. I repeat it. Nothing appeared. Over and over and over again. Then it finally happened. The game is buggy to top it off. I truly believe that the game is actually buggy with some puzzles. As I've already established during the execution scenes, some things that just don't seem to work exactly right. As no matter what I did, it kept killing the D team for me, despite the fact that I voted Q every time. Vote Q, 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 Q. Because, seriously, when the most likable member of a team is a serial killer, you know that team isn't great. I just don't know about the kid, and I feel like there's something fucked up about the kid. So, I went through the rest of the game in one sitting after that. It was a long sitting, I gotta say. I pretty much played the whole game in 3 days, and I basically didn't do anything else. It was over 20 hours. It's rough. God damn it. So, I gotta say, definitely see where the complaints might come from. I wouldn't call it the game a travesty, but the game definitely dropped the ball. One thing though, I can't imagine any situation where the game lives up to the expectations Virtue would set up. This game, Zero Time Dilemma, is as good as it could be, feasibly. I do believe that there are some glaring issues which can be fixed, but the most important part, the one which everyone should care about when it comes to this game, the writing, for the main story at least, it can't be any better. So if I were to complain about anything, when it comes to less important things, first of all, the dialogue feels extremely stilted in the cutscenes. If you play through the puzzle elements, through the escape rooms, and then you look at the dialogue in the actual cutscenes, it feels like they were written by completely different people, and I didn't understand why. In puzzle rooms, they actually have banter, they actually have some background information, they give the characters actual character. In the cutscenes, half of the words are like, huh? What? I don't believe this. How dare you? Damn you, Zero. It's like, I basically just said 50% of what the dialogue is in cutscenes. It's ridiculous. It's so badly written sometimes. I don't understand why. It doesn't mean that the main story is actually that bad. It's just, people don't talk like this. Anyway, after that, the animation is terrible. It's truly terrible. It's on the level of... Honestly, I think PlayStation 1 games had sometimes better animation than this. The visual fidelity itself is definitely better than PlayStation 1, but it's not too far off from PlayStation 2. It's not good. The game looks awful, and I had FPS drops in this. However, it was weird because the resource usage was actually pretty low. I would assume since my GPU isn't good, maybe the PC would make me use more RAM or something like that, or maybe tax the CPU or literally anything except GPU. No. It barely used any resources, and yet it still lagged. I was very confused by that. Next is the UI. UI was fucking terrible, just awful beyond belief. I was completely unable to use the keyboard because the keys used were designed by a person from the moon, which is fitting for this game. Next is the actual controls for the, like, how do I describe it? UI again, but the point is that I didn't like how the buttons were positioned. So for example, when I'm going to the flow selection, first of all, there are multiple flow screens. Second of all, sometimes flow screens lead into different scenes, which don't appear again in the flow charts. They appear in separate flow charts later on, but for example, you can have one scene which blah blah blah, it plays out, drops you back to team selection. After that, you're supposed to go back and select fragments, but it doesn't give you the fragment selection. Instead, it gives you the new scene which you can play through. it's very weird how it just controls and shows information, which does kind of make the whole thing more confusing and makes the storytelling a little bit better, I suppose, in a way, but it's just terrible UI. And also I hated how save was on the right every time you go into flow selection. I wanted to press on the right to go back. Back was on the left. Most places it was on the right, which just... I went into the save screen so many times, and every time I wanted to leave save screen, are you sure you want to leave without saving? I went through that shit so many times. I just wanted to beat the game. Physically. Just, if I had a disc, I just wanted to punch it. God. Anyway. Aside from that, I guess the puzzles sometimes were inconsistent. Like I said, it's buggy. The game itself is surprisingly buggy for what is essentially a point and click. It's bizarre. In addition, I guess... Well, I explain my problems with plot points slightly later on. So, as far as mysteries go, and whenever I figured out any mysteries, Q I didn't see coming because it's idiotic. It feels written completely last minute. The fact that Zero is in the cast is used in all 3 games, but this game was is the one that made it... Oh yeah, the invisible guy who was never mentioned is Zero. Duh! That plot point would have been more obvious than anything the second that guy is shown. And... God, what an insulting twist. Make it Zero into that guy who was just not ever shown to the player is absolutely dumbest fucking twist of this game. I feel insulted. Next is Shaun being Shaun, and Q, and the robot. That one was okay. I didn't predict that twist exactly, but I did notice weirdness about the character. Most specifically when Eric was very forceful with Q. For some reason, Eric just randomly flew around the place somehow. I assumed it was Mira, but at times Mira wasn't actually available. So I was like, something is wrong here. At one point I was 100% sure here that he is a robot, but I just didn't see what it gives to the story exactly. So I waived that idea and ignored it. But I think making him a robot with quantum computer actually gives him a nice angle of, yeah, he's just like you, people with superpowers, only his superpowers are artificial. These kind of parallels are nice to have in a story, and I believe it does benefit from it. So, as far as kids being people sent to the past who were important to the story, Fi I predicted 100%. Making her red-headed, having a conversation about it was just too on the nose. I think that hint was a little too obvious and actually ruined it a little. If her eyebrows were just red and it was never explained until the reveal, I think the mystery would have been better. But having a serious moment and then suddenly reveal with her sitting there and being like, oh yeah, I'm just so anxious because are you guys not gonna laugh at me? And then she just talks about her hair. So facts this silly. Facts like that, they don't get revealed like this. It can be used as a bonding experience. But it felt too unimportant and at an important junction. So it was 100% the writer saying, yup, they are related, no other redheads around, so these two characters are obviously related. Delta, however, was a total letdown. Good villains are built up. Good twists are built up. Good storytelling takes time. Delta had none of it. Name-dropping a cult in the background a few times and then suddenly revealing that there are twins, but only one appears in anything? Well, obviously Fi appears in the story, so it's obvious who she is and what she does in the story, but the second one, ooh, he never appears. I wonder what happened to him. Maybe that mysterious evil man who was revealed 5 seconds ago is somehow related to the story, but probably not. So yeah. They named him Delta. They might as well name the kid Zero. Zero Escapovich. Middle name 9. Okay, as far as mystery of transporting and shifting goes, I already bought into shifting in the previous 2 games. So while having more people have this unique ability with kind of retcon in it, I still feel like it was inevitable it would pop up. And I think Carlos being written as a shifter was pretty well done. Q's idea for shifting was a little weaker for sure. I just generally didn't feel like his character was very interesting or well written. So his reason for being in the story was not as well executed as Carlos. Transporting, however, was total silliness. The entire game relies on it. However, I think the whole thing is undermined by any mention of aliens. At no point was it established that aliens even exist in Zero Escape universe. So they appear to add a single extremely important plot device, and they never appear again. That's how garbage is written. However, the usage of the device itself, and the fact that it doesn't just teleport and it actually creates copies in another world, the amount of dilemmas it brings is wonderful. I loved that the story actually strongly relied on people teleporting to where they're already dead, which explains why everything is so fragmented. It just flows so well with it. But yeah, the explanation for the device itself is utter garbage. I don't know how you can explain this, but this was definitely not good. So next mystery is the murders, and who killed Mira, who killed Junpei, who killed Diana's team, yada yada yada. All of it felt lazy. A mystery like that appears fairly early to the player. It is answered once completely and is actually not that important. I was thinking over and over who could have done it and why, all over the course of playing the game, but there were no more hints. Essentially it boiled down to, the story needed more twists and drama. I instantly thought that the killer was Mira, but I didn't hear a reason. Sure, she's again fairly early shown, it is shown that she is a serial killer. But it's not like she just randomly decides to kill people. Whatever weird reason, whatever drives her or compels her, she has a reason when she kills people. And in this situation, there was no reason. Same as killing her. I suppose it could just be to curb her murders, but that's also lazy. So again, this was a weak point. Next is the box unlocking. Headless robot connected to a computer, and just the general escape box. God, why can't I remember the exact wording for it? Sudden abort box? Okay, if you play the game, you know what red box I mean. So I really liked what Carlos did, and I felt like it was very in character for him and was just enjoyable for two reasons. First, I loved how he essentially pulled a Chiemi, meaning he decided that jumping around in time is dumb and he might as well have fun with it. I want more of that. It was fun. It shows how normal, even good people go crazy. However, it turned out to be a ruse, which I initially disliked, but eventually thought it was a fairly cool idea, because it doesn't actually disprove the original reason I liked it. He fooled around still, but eh. So D-Team box was lovely. I watched it right after the reveal, so I immediately had the solution as I got it. And seeing that hug made me tear up. Okay, sure, I knew it was coming, but goddamn was it nice. So, thank you for that. That was very emotional and cute. So, Q-Team box was, let's call it poop. I don't want to call it dumb, because nothing dumb actually happened. To be honest, nothing actually happened, period. They just talked, revealed already known secrets, black screen. That was it. Yeah. Actually, might as well tie in talk with Zero into this. So, that was what eventually a hint toward the true ending and I guess another philosophical pseudoscience babble. These theories are specifically the kind which tackle the nature of life, universe and everything as we know it. Which means that it's impossible to prove it true or wrong. We just do not have the capacity to do so. I honestly did not like this kind of talk. It didn't feel new, original or impactful. Nothing in that talk did. And it was very hollow. Essentially what it means to me is that life is meaningless, everything is beyond our understanding, just accept that everything is unfair and do whatever. It wasn't the exact point of this talk, but this is what the conclusion it feels like the game is trying to imply. So lastly is the confrontation, the shift and the true ending. Confrontation was lazy. I feel like the entire thing aligned too well. Oh, they die. Oh, Gab is dead. Oh, now explosions. It was perfectly created to imply the need for shifting. And if it didn't, it's just as stupid as pressing the button early on. Everyone explodes. Again, everything is meaningless unless you do something to create a meaning. So whenever to shift or not to shift is a question. It's just learning more or not. And that's the same as game telling the player, you can just stop playing now. There's more of a game, yeah, of course, but you can stop now too. What the hell kind of offer is that? It's idiotic. Also, it annoyed the hell out of me how they kept talking about how shifting kills the people who used to be there before the shift. hello, you did that countless times countless amounts of shifts to get here? Suddenly you gonna have a conscience about it? Great timing, guys. And then the true ending. And I have to say, it's actually a good idea, because I pondered the same thing many times before. It's the same question as asking whenever fake isn't worth anything, whenever lies are pointless if they aren't true. So, for example, think about a situation when someone is pretending to be brave and does something actually brave. Saving a life, for example. Their lie turned into a truth. Same situation here. If people in this facility went through these terrible experiences and went on to do great things to prevent tragedies, but their memories never actually happened in real life, doesn't it mean that it is still meaningful? There's also something to be said about how much a person is their memories, because again, there's no singular answer here. Something is in us innate, because something is due to our experiences, and something is part of what I would call common sense. You could also bring up the theory of collective unconsciousness into this, in that our behavior is also modified by a certain unseen force which controls us all, in a way. Just as the whole idea of reality, lies, perception, and memories is beyond our current ability to fully comprehend. And it's fascinating to think about, and I just love the fact that the game makes me think. It doesn't necessarily mean that I get any smarter, but it makes me feel smarter, and that's what's important. Also, I did feel like it was a bit of a cop-out to throw a gun. It felt like a total movie ending and not actually meaningful. That part sucked. Zero also brought up a good point about how he did not actually do anything wrong, and I loved that too. It also brings up an even better point. Currently there is a technology to directly scan our brain activity to communicate, which means we should be steps away from doing the opposite, meaning directly telling something to the brain. So imagine the future where someone gets kidnapped and forced to experience something horrible. The horrible trauma one can inflict is immeasurable. However, the evidence can be destroyed and only kept behind in the mind of a victim. How would a crime like that be prosecuted? Is it even a crime? Legally. Morally, of course, but legally. Again, not exactly what is happening here, but I found that idea fascinating too. So I suppose that is all. I haven't read the ending files, but I'm gonna get to that eventually. Don't think there is any need to comment on those, but if something is really interesting, I probably will. My words for the end are probably what I rarely get sucked into the game so much that I'm essentially sitting there like a crack addict, wondering whenever I should get the next hit or do something else. Rage and Loop was the last game like that. This game I resisted a bit more, so it wasn't as enjoyable, but it wasn't too far off. I enjoyed it a lot, that's the point. So I believe there were some plot holes, but I can ignore those for the sake of avoiding nitpicking. The obvious one is probably why don't they just shift before they activate the box, but whatever. I guess one plot point I didn't understand and wanted explained was the presence of Mira and Eric. So, Carlos is a new character, he's a shifter, so he's okay there. Same with Diana. Collect shifters and all that, but Mira and Eric were not shifters. I can understand Mira, I suppose. Adding another element of danger to the mix by throwing a serial killer into the cast. I guess that one is okay. But Eric remains a mystery to me because he was nothing but useless, annoying, and actively detrimental to everything. His existence made the whole thing more awkward. It honestly feels like the idea is that Zero is just calculating everything with his quantum computer. And he can't actually read minds or control anyone. Except for Eric. Basically, Eric is so worthless and shitty at everything that he is somehow getting mind controlled by Zero. Let's say through suggestion or something. As in, he doesn't actually have any superpowers. Eric is he just sucks so bad, it makes everyone else around him appear to have superpowers. And I suppose that's a superpower in of itself. What a wonderful character you are, Eric. What a wonderful character.